Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'll present you with the Zenless Zone Zero Battle Pass analysis. In this video I will talk about the premium Battle Pass as well and what are the best weapons you can select from the Battle Pass. So without any more delay, let's get into the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass in this game it's called New Eridu City Fund. The level of the Battle Pass goes to up to level 50, just like Genshin or Honkai Star Rail originally. There is a possibility of them expanding the levels in the future like they did it with Honkai Star Rail, but for now it is at level 50. Here on the screen you can also check quickly what it is on the Battle Pass. Don't worry, I'll also provide it more in detail on the screen, especially what is what, and more importantly the premium Battle Pass, which is the paid one. It costs $10. As you can see here on the screen, these are the items you will receive from the Battle Pass Premium, which is 680 polychromes. This is basically the gems. You get pretty much the same in Star Rail or Genshin. Then along with 4 event pulls, 5 pet gacha pulls. Yes, you can get the pet gacha pulls from the Battle Pass as well, a bit extra from the premium that is. The free route also has them. As for other resources such as weapon experience materials, character experience materials, and so on, we'll also get that extra. And of course also Dennis, which is equivalent of credit / Mora. And of course there's also going to be skill level up materials, which is very similar to what we have with previous Battle Pass in other Hoyo games. We also do get an item that allows us to craft golden artifacts / relics equivalent of Genshin / Star Rail. And lastly, we also have the weapon selector, which is at level 30. Unlike Honkai Star Rail, the weapons in this game do have substats, so not everything is gonna be as necessarily bad like what we had in Star Rail, because in Star Rail a lot of the Battle Pass weapons were straight up copium. In Genshin, the Battle Pass weapons were somewhat better at the start because they had all crit rate substats. Unfortunately, in this game, not all weapons have the crit rate substats, but nevertheless, some of them have nice passives and so on. As you can see on the screen, these are the 5 Battle Pass weapons we'll be able to get from the Battle Pass. The weapons are locked, the passive that is behind character roles, such as attack, stun, anomaly, support, and defense. So if you do not match the right role of the character, the passive will be locked out, much like Lightcons in Honkai Star Rail. Before I go into detail for every single weapon, which one is worth going for, I would like to let you know that each weapon on the screen that you're going to see, it's going to be at level 60, which is max level, and also the passive is going to be at 1 copy, not at Superimposition 5 or Refinement 5, if you call it like from Star Rail / Genshin. But do keep in mind that just like in Star Rail, the passive is not doubled if you have 5 copies of it like you would have in Genshin. Let's begin with the first weapon, Cannon Rotor. This is an attack weapon for the attack roll characters. Level 60, base attack 594. The base attack between 4 stars and 5-star weapons is not as large as in Wuthering Waves. In this game, 5-star weapons usually have 713 base attack or 684. So 594 base attack is relatively high and nice. This weapon also does have crit rate substats 20%, which will make it so much easier to build your character in early / mid game. As for the passive, the crit rate will be increased by 8%, so you will have 28% crit rate in total, and any attack that lands a critical hit on an enemy will inflict an additional damage based off attack. This weapon can only be triggered once every 8 seconds. This weapon is pretty solid, even if the passive of additional attack is not going to be necessarily the best, because it is an 8-second cooldown, and you might trigger this additional effect on an enemy you didn't really want to. Let's say you fight multiple enemies, like little small odds, and there's the big odd, and you accidentally triggered this extra additional damage on the little guy instead of the big one. So that could be annoying, but nevertheless, 28% crit rate is pretty nice. And like I said, if you do get multiple copies, the crit rate will increase, but unfortunately, it's not going to be doubled. I believe it's going to be something like 12%, but even at 1 copy, this weapon is pretty decent. As for which characters could use this weapon, effectively any attack unit would appreciate this weapon as long as they do scale on crit. So from Anton to Soldier 11, basically most all of the attack units, this is gonna work just fine. Now let's go over to the next weapon called 6 Shooter. This weapon is for the stun roll units. Stun roll units are effectively units that are good at crowd control, aka stunning enemies / dazing them as fast as possible. The base attack of the weapon is is exactly the same as previous one. Actually, every single 4-star Battle Pass weapon has the same base attack. The impact substat is effectively a substat that helps at increasing the days of the enemies whenever you attack them. So the higher impact stat you will have, the quicker you will be able to accumulate days to stun enemies. As for the passive, the equipper gains a charge every 3 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. When launching an X special attack, it will consume all charge stacks, and each stack will increase the days inflicted by 4%. I do want to point out that X special attack is the improved version of the skill, which costs energy, so it's not something you'll be able to spam necessarily all the time, unless if you can get the energy relatively quickly back up. As for days inflicted, it's effectively going to be at 24% at maximum. This is a pretty decent weapon for stun units to help you stun enemies even quicker, but I do not think it's a high priority choice of weapon. There's definitely other more enticing Battle Pass weapons to choose from compared to 6-shooter, and unfortunately 6-shooter does not have any crit rate substats or anything like that. But do not get me wrong, the impact stat is not necessarily as bad. It could end up being very crucial because it does allow you to stun enemies quicker. As for which characters could use this weapon, something like Ambi or Koleda could use it, but once again, I would really not recommend to choose this weapon as your first Battle Pass weapon option. Now let's move over to the third weapon, Electro Lip Gloss. This weapon has a very funny picture, let's put it that way. This weapon is for Anomaly type of units. Currently, we only have one Anomaly type of unit, which is Grace. Anomaly units are basically debuffer units. They excel at accumulating Anomaly buildup to weaken enemies and deal damage by triggering attribute anomalies. In short, if you played Honkai Star Rail or Genshin, think of it something similar to Break Effect / Elemental Mastery. Not exactly carbon copy the same, but being similar. And the substat itself reflects into that because it does give you Anomaly proficiency. Anomaly proficiency will increase the damage done by attribute anomaly, and attribute anomalies will basically happen whenever you accumulate the anomaly on a target to trigger the debuff itself. So for example, Grace, which is an electric unit, whenever she would deal electric damage to enemies, she would accumulate electric attribute anomaly, which in turn would trigger the shock effect when there is enough being accumulated, and shocked enemies will immediately get additional electric damage and also get interrupted immediately. And if they happen to be machines, for example, you'll also be unable to move while shocked. So the normal units are pretty good to look into and have, but unfortunately right now we only have one anomaly unit, and if you did decide to go for this weapon, effectively only Grace could use it. Also the passive, as you can see, when there are enemies inflicted with attribute anomaly on the field, the equipper attack will increase by 10% and they deal an additional 15% more damage to the target. This weapon, it doesn't really entice me that much because the buff itself is only for the wielder of the weapon. If this buffed your entire team or something like that, I think it would be much more interesting. So I do not think this is a high priority weapon as of right now. Perhaps it might change in the future whenever they release more anomaly units. We shall see. Now let's go over to the fourth weapon, Unfettered Game Ball. This is a support weapon for support units. Support units in the game are basically characters that will provide buffs for your team, either to do more damage or stuff like that. Pretty straightforward. This weapon does provide energy regeneration increase. Do note that energy regeneration is not for your ultimate. Your ultimate is a different resource needed for it. It's called Decibel. So energy regen is just for your skill, your enhanced skill, that is. But it's still very good because supports usually have a nice skill that you wanna spam or use as soon as you can. And the passive of this weapon is actually pretty interesting. Whenever the equipped character will trigger an attribute counter effect, increases all squad member crit rate by 12% for 12 seconds. The bonuses triggered by the same type of passive effect do not stack, so you won't be able to stack it up, but nevertheless, being able to get a 12% crit rate boost for your entire team, it can be very nice. The crit rate for your entire team, it's pretty nice. I believe this effect will technically only trigger whenever you perform a perfect assist, and the holder of this weapon will actually perform this perfect assist. So I'm not really sure how much often you're gonna trigger this, but if you can effectively trigger this all the time to have a relatively near 100% uptime, then this weapon is a pretty good choice. But do keep in mind, the passive effect does not get doubled if you get 5 copies of it. But I do believe this weapon could be a nice contender with the attack weapon, at least as a second choice to go, if not first. As for support units that can use this weapon, it's Nicole, Rina, or Sokaku. I believe this weapon has potential, and it's something to potentially look more into it. And lastly, we have Spring Embrace. This is a defense role weapon. Currently, we only have one defense character in the game, Ben, and that one is also for free. One interesting thing for this weapon is the substat. It's an attack percentage, because usually for defense units, they scale potentially on defense. At least the current defense unit we have does scale on defense to some extent, which is Ben. As for the passive, it reduces the damage you take by 7.5%, and whenever you are attacked, the wearer will have their energy regeneration rate increased a bit, and whenever the holder of the weapon goes off field, this buff will be transferred to the new character on the field, and it has its duration refreshed. So I believe this weapon could have some potential, because effectively you can transfer the energy regeneration buff to the next unit, and it also completely refreshes the duration. However, I'm not sure how much the 10% will play a part, because even if you do get the dupes, it's not like it's going to be doubled. But if 10% does play a part to optimize your rotations for characters even better, then I could see this weapon having somewhat of a potential. But nevertheless, I would say for all of these weapons right now, for starters at least, I think Cannon Rotor is probably go-to weapon, because you do want to early game / mid game, you want to invest in a DPS unit so you can plow through the content, make it easy as much as possible, and Cannon Rotor would provide you decent amount of crit rate. It definitely would help you, but I'm not sure how well will this weapon age compared to something like Unfettered Game Ball, the support weapon, which increases the crit rate of your entire team, or even the Spring Embrace, which does give energy regeneration to the next unit. So these are all the Battle Pass weapons. I think the value this time around is potentially a bit better than what you had in Honkai Star Rail, because in Star Rail you only had Erudition weapon that was enticing and to some extent Harmony. In this game, we might have more than 2 weapons being good from the Battle Pass. So yeah, I guess this is it for this video. If you have any questions about the game, feel free to ask me down in the comments, or even better, feel free to ask me in my stream. I stream every single day on Twitch / YouTube. I do cover also other gacha games, so if you have any questions about other games such as Honkai Star Rail, WoW, and so on, feel free to ask, or if you just want to chill and hang out on stream and chat with us, you can also do that. And of course, the YouTube thingy. If you enjoyed this type of video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I wish you a wonderful day, and see you in the next video.